which is fine. It is starting now.
Okay, excellent. So we will move on to the treasurer's report. Matt, will you be presenting that this evening?
Yes, you can go to the first slide. Okay, and just as a reminder and calibration for those who are in the room or may still be in the room, all of our treasurer's charts are consistent in that favorability is up. So top half of this summary chart is revenue. The bottom half is expenses. The darker bars are forecast and the lighter bars are actual. And you can see 11 months of actual with the 12th month just forecast. This is data through November. And the green line is our actual net of for the P&L statement for the district, and the darker green line is the forecast net. You can see here we are in a period this fourth quarter of the year where we are forecast to be below net below zero, but we're actually favorable. Net favorability cumulative for the year as of end of November is 672,000. The bulk of that, 476 of that, 1,000 of that is due to unexecuted capital from the capital budget for this year. So we're running behind on executing capital projects, and that's leading to this favorability. So 200K of the favorability roughly is from other things. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the revenue picture. Sorry for that formatting error in the display, but this is roughly 100K favorability. This is cumulative in revenue for the year. There's some noise in the system from the ARC reimbursements we get from the State Department of Commerce. And that should net to zero by the end of the year. So you can consider this at least neutral, slightly positive, slightly favorable. In truth, if you go to expenses, you'll see the significant expense control. Those purple bars are the unexecuted capital in a cumulative sense. And so you can see that total is 556K of favorability in expenses, but 476 of that is due to unexecuted capital. You'll see the last slide shows the fund balances, and they are on plan. We'll be resetting the fund balance, the M&O reserve fund balance for the 2025 year in January, as it's a forward-looking calculation based on expenses in the 2025 year. So that'll be the next change, significant change in the fund balances, and that'll happen in January. If there are no questions on the summary report, we can go to the vouchers. The vouchers are a little bit more complicated these days because we've got three funds from which vouchers are drawn: M&O, the capital fund, and final balances from the construction fund. So this is the latest that's being displayed, and folks can raise any questions now on any of the three fund accounts.
I want to highlight a few things in the vouchers that were different than what you got on Friday, just because there was a few bigger purchases I wanted to highlight. Starting with the Harbor Plumbing, you had about $7,000. That was budgeted improvements to the restrooms, so new toilets, things like that. Tom has been having work done out there. You also see the next one, which is the Hegnes. This is where we have the tree removals at Trussland Trails. We closed down the trails, as I mentioned last Wednesday, and they they had a very busy day, clearing out a whole bunch of the dead trees, making the trails more safe. So that is what that big one is. If you come down a little bit more, you'll see a $6,000 for Horizon Distributors. Again, this is just end of the year purchasing. That's normal. Tom's been spending money to upgrade some of his stuff. He actually went battery operated on some equipment, which he's been pretty happy with so far.
Is that what Horizon Distributors is? Is that just like blowers? Like
blowers, and that's a lot of our irrigation.
Yeah,
they're an irrigation supplier.
So yeah, that's that. Morley and Sons septic inspection. That's just Morley and Sons
And pumping.
and pumping. Correct. So that was just a maintenance issue. And then finally, just because it's a large number, you'll see down here the TENW, which is the limited scope traffic study. This is what was required to us by the county for the pickleball court. Do a traffic study of impact of traffic for adding. So those are some.
Was that just on Langley Road or was that Langley and Maxwell? Wasn't there a question that they wanted both sides done?
Well, we've already done the pool traffic study separately. What we were able to do is go back to the same company that did the pool side. I'm sorry, the Max Welton side. And they had to do some updates on that for the pickleball, but they were able to merge them because they'd already had the work done. So
That was Langley Road.
Langley Road is the primary part of that study.
But the emphasis, to Jennifer's point, is the confluence of both roads. That's what
That was part of it.
that part of it.
Part of it, but also it was just the amount of traffic. They looked at rather a turn lane would be needed for us to add the pickleball court. They had just all that stuff, just how much impact there would be on, not only that, but on 525 into Langley Road, the major intersections, the arterial intersections. So anyways, that was required, so we had to get it done. So those are just some of the highlights that were added
How
since
many capture points were there?
those two. For the pickleball court specifically, there was Langley and Max Welton, and there was 525 on the Langley.
Okay.
Any questions about the vouchers? Any of the
Any-
three categories?
Yeah, any other questions from the board? If there are none, we'll make a motion to approve the vouchers in the following amounts from the following funds from
Matt?
M&O.
I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but we now do a
Consent agenda
consent agenda, so we don't need to approve the vouchers
individually.
individually. So we'll cover that in a moment.
Okay,
So the consent agenda then, the consent agenda then is for the approval of the minutes as well as the voucher list and construction fund. So if there are no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, I.
Krista, I.
Jake, I.
Matt, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the consent agenda is approved. Ryan, will you lead us through the staff report, please?
Yes, recreation program report, basketball registration is ongoing. One of the things we're doing differently this year is all of our leagues are going co-ed. So that'll help with some of the balance of some of the issues we've had in years past with the discrepancy. So that's a little different. We have a futsal clinic in a couple of weeks on the 2nd and 3rd of December for the kids, ages 7 to 13. And just to follow up a little bit, we will be looking at new fitness options and classes going into 2025, as we see that as an area of need. Facilities, as I mentioned before, Trust and Trails was closed all day on the 11th to fall several dangerous trees, and new fixtures were installed in the bathrooms. The crew took down the berm. I don't know if you guys have been out to the community park in the last couple of weeks, but I'll show you a picture. This little area here used to be a mound. It was a horrible mound to mow. I haven't done it myself. And B, it really opens up the park. So Tom brought his excavator in and just him and the guys just cleared this all out. And then they went the next mile and they've added a trail, which starts at the crosswalk. This is during construction, so it's getting cleaned up from this. And it goes all the way and it connects to the trail across from the basketball court where that little kiosk is. So when you walk it, it just looks, and we get a lot of kids coming in the park, so now they can go on a trail versus going down the driveway.
Yep.
Just a real nice improvement. And when you go in, it kind of like, oh, it looks really nice. It really opens up that area. And as our pool will soon be on the other side of that, what was a berm, it also opens up the view. Just nice.
And it is a missing area. I run that all the time, and it's the one area you gotta run down the road.
Yes,
You know, if you're a runner, there's no way to get to the other parts. So,
there is now.
yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it doesn't impact the project in the pool. Our septic tank's gonna go in this area, but it won't have, this trail will still remain, so it's a nice addition. Good idea by Tom. Kudos to Tom as always.
Nice work, Tom. I can't wait to see it in person. It looks great in the picture.
Yeah.
So how many trees were taken down on the 11th?
Oh,
Probably 60 plus.
Wow.
There was really some that were just so hung up. We had the excavator out there as well. So we probably brought out 2 or 3 boards of just rounds that we just basically dumped, and the next morning we put a first come first serve just to try and get some of the debris. We're going to go out probably another time or two and try and remove a bunch more debris. I mean, there's just stacks of logs out there. So we basically took the hazard or disease trees down and just cut our way through them to the side. And we're not getting a break with the wind. It keeps coming. So we will get back out there and probably another day or two, we'll try and get some more of the debris off the trails.
Thank you.
No, it was much needed, and it was shutting the park down for a day. We've never done that, but I mean, it's so dangerous when we're doing what we're doing because people don't listen. They don't.
Yeah.
You know, experiment through anyway, and it's scary when we're dealing with that volume, especially.
And the people that reached out that day, because you're going to get people calling because the park's locked. When they realized what we were doing, they all showed, at least when I talked to them, they all showed appreciation. Like, oh, thank you, because they realized we're making the park safer. And so they one gal's like, I just went over to the community park and hiked or walked, and so they appreciated the effort. So
And
It was a huge relief to get that done.
given that amount, that was a really good price from Higgins.
Isn't that incredible?
So,
That was the first question. Any climbing? No climbing? No brushing? Put it on the ground and we'll deal with it behind you.
Yeah.
So it worked really great.
I'm gonna screw slept well that night. Hired guys. So, the director's report, as I notified you before, Shelby has submitted her resignation. She'll be here. She's not here this week, but she'll be here next week for her final week. We already have the position open. Already got applications being received, and it closes on the 2nd. So you'll see it in the newspaper. We have it on Drew's list, obviously on our website. The RFP for the class and compensation study is out. That closes December 30th. This is every 5 years, we just do a study of salaries. In this one, we also included several potential aquatic positions just because this is the time to get a professional to give us some pricing. So that is out and closes the week after Christmas. Already got some calls on that as well. And we are hiring Michael McGinnis through the Sherwood Community Service Program as our new custodian 1. This is the program we talked about a couple months ago. His schedule will be an hour or two every week here, doing basic custodial stuff during the day. He'll have a job coach with him on site helping out. And then Sky had the idea, which I thought was pretty enlightened, to offer him an hour out at the community center getting the gym floors and stuff under control, because that's stuff that Sky or the other volunteers often have to do. So it'll be nice to, and his parents and him seem very motivated. We met with the dad. Sky will be overseeing this position. But yeah, real nice young man and really good parents yes. So excited to get that going. The hopeful date is January 8th, right around there. We're working through the paperwork and all that stuff. So I'm excited to get him on board. And that is it for the staff report.
Okay.
I have a question about the
Sure.
fitness facilities and instructors. Kind of pertains to public comment tonight too. So I'm just curious, do we have people in the community that are interested in doing fitness instruction, since the need is there? And do we have enough facilities to make that happen?
Yeah.
Well, those are my two big questions.
I'll take it first and I'll let you add on to whatever you want to add on. We have the community center gym during the day, which is a high impact time for doing it. You know, my wife does this. This is what she does in these kind of classes, teaches them. So there are some instructors in the community. We haven't started reaching out. I mean, this is kind of new to us too, as far as having this need. But it's something Sky and I have talked about as kind of a focal point. early in the year, trying to figure out some kind of rotation. The community center is a nice gym. We also have the elementary gym on the weekend, which we're using on a Saturday now. Basketball's coming, so that we're not going to be using that anytime soon. But these kind of classes tend to run during the daytime, so the community center is pretty available, especially the upstairs gym. So Sky, I don't know if you want to chime in on anything else beyond that.
I mean, there's plenty of facilities. I think, our instructors out there, and I think if they were to approach us and say, hey, I'd like to offer something through Parks and Rec, I feel like they'd realize it's pretty lucrative for them in regard to, they take 80% of what it is, whereas a lot of them, when they're working at other places, they're just getting an hourly pay. So with this one, they're, you can be a bit more motivated if you've got a good following, then you can get a bit better with it.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm asking. I know, like, we're talking about doing it in the day, and I assume that was probably the case, but my wife is a regular after work, and I know that they're maxed out in their classes. So I think providing that opportunity after work type of ambiance, would be even better. And I think there is a need there. It's interesting that that topic came up because I'm thinking about the gyms that used to be here. We used to have a lot of aerobic type activity up at Kent's Corner. That really isn't there anymore. And now those opportunities, they're just not as many of them in the evening, especially, I think.
Yeah, and if we were looking at facilities evening wise, winter is really rough. But the rest of the year, like you get outside of March, like March through.
And I get that.
Yeah.
That's why I keep coming back to that because thing about the pool and, that facility having a place and even down the road in phase 2 of that being a necessity to meet the community needs for that very purpose. So gyms are used for basketball and athletics, but that fitness piece, I just started going through in my head thinking, okay, where exactly are you going to do that?
Yeah. Well, and it can be pretty cost effective too, just because, we do have to pay for when we use the community center, but it's still, less than what anybody else would necessarily have to for those facilities. But again, because that instructor instead of working for a business or a club or whatever else it is, they're kind of their own sole proprietor and can choose like, how do I make a price point for this that,
Yeah, no, it's a great
is affordable. I mean, that was kind of like what we did with pickleball is realizing that we had some older adults that were on fixed incomes, and when we were having them pay $6 a piece every time, when they mounted it up, they were saying, this is more than a health club for me. So then we recognized, okay, let's make something affordable that still makes it so we're basically breaking even for everything that we can do with this.
I think a fitness class would do the same thing.
Yeah.
Moving on, are there any committee or community meeting reports? Was anyone able to attend the Island County Parks? I was not.
I did not.
Yes, I did. So, okay, takeaways from that. A lot of what we know, which is high demand for trails, for walking on trails, walking with dogs on trails, walking on beaches with dogs. That's at the top. Some combinations of those, both for now, as well as projections to 2050. And that was a combination of data from a survey that they had put out, as well as using data from state recreation. Let's see, what else? Viewing wildlife, water activities, looking at the water, being near the water. Yes. What was kind of down towards the bottom anything related to horses, which I thought was kind of interesting. And maybe a little counter to what we found in our own surveys.
Do you know how big the survey sample was?
It wasn't as large as I would have hoped.
Okay. I saw percentages, but I didn't see a ton.
Yeah, it wasn't, again, it wasn't as large as I had hoped. And of course, it skewed older.
Here we go. I beg your pardon. 152 surveys with suggestions or recommendations.
This is the most current survey that I.
This is one. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You broadcast
Literally,
about
you
after
broadcast. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So given that that's for all of Island County, I find it low. However, to cut them some slack, this originally when Island County planners were looking at the comprehensive plan update and dividing everything, into the different segments, they told parks, hey, we're just going to make some small updates. We're just going to do some like quick line items. And then I think it was the end of September, beginning of October, where planning and commissioners turned around and said, oh no, we've changed our minds. We're going to do a complete rehaul of Section 7, Parks and Recreation. So that department had to really quickly get out there, create, set up, they had their first set of meetings to get feedback, get the survey out. They had to hire a consultant to try to make this all happen really quickly. And their deadline is like next week.
Wow.
So I would say that department worked as fast as they could to pull together what they could to turn into the commissioners. Also, a side note, the head of that department, their wife died a couple weeks ago. And like the service was actually last week, that Saturday, really windy Saturday last week. So yeah, only 100. So they're doing the best that they can with a really, really short timeline.
Thank you.
I felt like that survey was pretty broad in scope. It wasn't asking the questions I wanted to answer. Now I understand why.
Yeah. Any other committee or community meeting reports? Okay. We'll move on to unfinished business, comprehensive plan programs, please, Brian.
All right. And just a reminder, whenever I put something in red on this thing, it means it's something that wasn't in your original. Something's happened this week that I wanted you to know about. But I'll start at the beginning. Permit documents for the pickleball courts have been submitted. Oh, I'm sorry. You get bigger?
Thank you.
There we go. Permit documents have been submitted and paid for to Island County. So that is underway. We're now just in a waiting game. The original plan was to go out to bid for pickleball in January, hopefully. All kind of depends on the county at this point. I did have a meeting with Barry from Woodby Island Pickleball or Woodby Pickleball last week. He updated that a reminder that their portion of this is the Woodby Pickleball, and their members have pledged $50,000 towards the grant as the matching portion. To date, they've raised approximately $42,000, which is great. They've done a lot of work. I know Barry's, hearing a lot from Barry, which is great. Had a good meeting, just updating him on the project. A little bit of pickleball and a little bit of aquatic news on this one. I was informed today, just a couple hours ago, that Island County is now saying instead of, you'll remember that a couple months ago, we voted on deeding them 10 feet of, I said percent, I meant feet, excuse me, 10 feet of land for a right of way, which is relatively common. The county engineer now informed us that this is considered a major arterial road, Max Welton is, and so we need to deed them 20 feet. I don't know what that does to the plans. By my rough estimate, when I look at the plans, 20 feet brings us right to the edge of the parking lot. And I don't know how close that is. But it got better because they also informed us that the same 20 feet will need to be deeded for the pickleball project to put a pickleball courts in the middle of our park. I responded quickly with, that doesn't make any sense to me. Who do I need to talk to? And so I got the name of the assistant county engineer. To the degree that the the aquatic center is a major multi-million-dollar project, I have a little bit of understanding there, but the understanding of us giving up 20 feet of our land along Langley Road to put a pickleball court in. I mean, did we do that when we put a playground in? I mean, that's the same logic that we were putting an amenity in our park.
I
So
understand what that 20 feet is for. Is it a road widening?
it's so the 10 feet was for their ability to put in crosswalks, other things that widen the road. So they had the control to control that space of land. So
10 feet just on the one side or 10 feet on both sides?
10, well, right, the original thing was 10 feet along Maxwellton from the length of the project. Now they're asking for 20 and informing us, because this involves lawyers. We're already spending money to lawyers to write all this up and to get all the questions. Now informing us that the length of Langley Road, which would go into our park, that would go across our fence line 20 feet. It's not like it's just a dead space there. That also will become county property if we proceed with the pickleball project. I'm hoping there's more to figure out here. I have requested the meeting from the county engineer. They're saying the guy did say it's a state thing, but he also said in his email that we've been very inconsistent in enforcing this, which means it's random. Might be the rule. I don't know. I don't know everything yet. I forwarded the information to the aquatics team so that they know. I asked them the impact on them if we had to give up 20 feet. It's unfortunate. And again, it's pretty new information. The reason they responded to this is I asked them, the attorney from Pacifica, the land use attorney that I'm working with, he said there is a couple things we need. One is we need a survey of that space, which Island County has surveyors. So the thought was, we're giving them the land, they would do the survey. No, but we got to pay for that too. So there's a lot of work and expenses for us to give up land right now. So I don't know everything yet. Like I said, this is new information, some of this, so we haven't had time to really vet it properly. So you're getting very raw data and information. But that was today's update. So we'll see where that goes. Also with the pool, we did receive the 75% CD set. We've had a lot of meetings. Tom and I spent Tuesday pretty much all day in meetings with the different subcontractors, talking through all the little details, which have been great. They're intense, but they're good. If we stay on schedule, CD will be concluded sometime in February. Again, the county and the state and all them. When I say when we stay on schedule, it's really there's other players in here that we can't control. So our hope is to be completed with CD sometime around February. Still waiting for as I mentioned before, cost estimators come in with updated numbers. There was a bit of a back and forth with our design team as far as us getting those numbers, because they want to spend a month with the numbers to basically make sure they're accurate. They want to vet them, go back to the subcontractors that are giving them the numbers, make sure they're accurate, make sure they're getting what they want. So initially they had declined our wanting these numbers. And so I went back and said, no, we need the numbers because I want to be able to compare before and after. So we did get a rough estimate, but the real cost estimate numbers that have been cleaned up are now coming to us on January 10th. So I've got the first draft of the numbers. January 10th, we have a long meeting with ARC and our project manager and that team to go through the estimates closely. So we'll know a little bit more. That's the update there. And on a side note, speaking of Island County, I've also requested a meeting, haven't heard back from them. There is a strip of land, I forget if I mentioned this last month, along the north end of the property, which is right next to the parking lot of the old office building. We're not even sure how long it is, maybe 10 feet, that runs right along the tree line there. That is Island County property. So it'll be right next to where our pool parking lot's going to be. So the conversation is, Island County, do you want to be part of this clearing? Do you want to just leave the trees and hope they don't fall? Which seems dangerous because there'll be trees that aren't used to getting the wind that they're going to be getting. So I've requested a meeting with the gentleman from Island County to come do a walkthrough and see what their thoughts are on that. So
No opportunity for shared parking facilities?
maybe that's another conversation about using some of that parking there. I've thought about that too, particularly on event days or things that we've got Yeah, if we've got a swim meet going on currently, and that I think it's probably going to change, but currently that parking lot is empty most of the week. And I know initially they weren't planning to use that building till 2025, so that might change. They might have plans for transition, but and then one more thing on the pool, but I'm going to just jump to the campground real quick, just to say that I have begun working with J.E. Brennan on the new site plan. I've got a meeting with them Friday. Is it Friday or maybe Monday? And just a reminder that after this is completed, we'll make a significant payment towards the debt of the campground, which will really help. Another item, just about the aquatic center that I want to talk. I'm kind of glad that Marnie, you're here at a good time. And Eric's here and Matt's here, which is good too. Let me see if I can pull up this picture. Oops, nope. Sorry, I don't want to hit the wrong button here. A second here. There is an item that got brought up in one of our meetings yesterday regarding something that I believe the JCC had vetted, and that was regarding that's not it. Oh, here we go. Regarding large fans in the auditorium and where the pools are set. And we have in the design a couple of very large fans designed to, I assume, cool that area during the hot weather. Maybe I don't remember. That part of what I want to talk about is what the function of them are. The consultants that we met with, which were the engineers who put all this in, they don't care. They have no vested interest whether we have fans or not. He said the only thing that's going to cool is people standing right underneath it. And he explained the airflow of the building, how the cooling unit from the roof comes down, goes over the water. It has a pattern to it. And he goes, his concern is putting two large fans pushing air down on top of that pattern is going to disturb the pattern. He goes, the room should be controlled temperature by the cooling unit and fans shouldn't be necessary. I'm like, and that's what I said.
Brian, it was not a temperature concern, it's air quality. And it was a recommendation from William Shore Pool in Port Angeles because air quality, especially in the vicinity of the spa pool, is very poor because of the chemical outgassing that happens from the water surface. So their recommendation was to add circulation fans to improve air quality for pool users.
It was also
nothing to do with temperature.
Okay.
Yeah, but Skagit Pool, I will say, Matt, it was also, the same exact thing up there. Engineers told them that the chloramines and everything was being handled, and then they, as swimmers, were going, "No, it's not being handled."
Interesting. Okay.
And that helped dissipate that. But it was also, whether they want to acknowledge that or not, it was a cooling effect. And the lifeguards and the people that use that pool said that in the heat of summer, having that air circulation made a difference. So.
Well, he did say it clearly would be an option. Like if it's hot in there, you'd have a place to go stand it, right? So that's interesting. That's something we didn't have information.
Their word was they have more physical control over the dynamics of that pool, and that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and that's fine with me too. Like I said, right now there's a couple in there, and that's exactly the kind of answer I was looking for. Something that kind of explains the logic. So
yeah, and to the point about like what they should care about, air quality is right there on par with air temperature, because if people are that'll drive user feedback. If you look at like Skagit YMCA, as Eric referenced, if you look at their online feedback from various forums, Nextdoor and Foursquare and these other places, like half of it is on air quality when they launched. So we just got to make sure that the environmental guys actually do acknowledge that that's important and then don't blow that off just because it's a pool and maybe they don't understand that it's different from an office building.
Is it a downdraft or an updraft? So is it pulling?
I think you can reverse the blades, but
That's a good question. I think it depends on what they're trying to do. The chloramines that float on top is really what the issue was. That was the big issue in the beginning, but then it also related to heat as the weather got into the hot summer months. So probably reversed both ways, just like you would have. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, they're in the plan, so there's nothing to discuss. There's nothing to move on. I just wanted to get some more information. So, and it was nice to have 3 of the JCC members who have vetted this pretty well. So good. That's all I got then.
Then we shall move on to new business, starting with the 2025 meeting schedule.
All right, well, nothing too crazy here. There's a couple things I want to point out because they are a little different and I want to make sure the board's okay with it. When the board meeting lands on the 15th, two things happen. Unless it's the month of February, it means it's a 5 Wednesday month. So we either have an extra week, which means we have an extra week after the board meeting than normal. It's a real challenge for Carrie in particular to get that information from the county. So what we're proposing is then the 2 months in 2025, which would be January and I believe October. Yep. We're proposing just moving the meeting back a week. So we're going to get an extra week that month because it's a 5-week month. We're proposing doing it the week, giving us the week off before. I would carry more time to get the proper reports and moving those back. So that is one oddity. The other thing we're throwing into the conversation, and I don't know if it's worth talking about, I won't be here in the February meeting. So if the board's comfortable with that, we can keep the agenda pretty mainstream and straightforward. I can get with Jennifer and manage that portion, but something to throw into the consideration. So any comments or questions or concerns?
I guess my concern would be, given that we're going to be the cost estimates, right? I mean, I understand they're due January 10th, their meeting's January 22nd. What if?
Right.
And then just the general updates on the meetings with the CD set and all of that. So who would be qualified to deliver that in your absence?
Right. Couple of thoughts. One is I can have a lot prepared. Two, Mark could be here, project manager, and he could talk pretty intelligently because he'll be in all those meetings too. So we can ask him to give a report on any relevant things. There won't be big decisions to be made during that point. If we're going to have to bid for anything, it'll be after that week. I'll be on a ship celebrating my 30th wedding anniversary. So feel free to call me. I'm sure I'll pick up. So there's a.
So the option is to proceed with the 19th, or we could push it
Yeah.
a week.
We could. It would be late February. It's a short month too, so it's an odd. To push it is taking it basically to 2 days before the end of the month. So certainly a possibility.
Any other conversation or questions from?
If we pushed it 1 week, what would that do in terms of vouchers and getting things paid?
Yeah, I was gonna comment on that for the January and the October one, and yes, anything that gets pushed out, you would be entrusting us to basically do vouchers and approve them all after the fact. So usually we reserve large payments and for the batch where you guys can approve it before we officially submit them for payment. So
Which would be like the items that are called open.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. So the spendy ones. So there's a little bit more risk in it. We would be you would be approving everything that's already done.
I'm okay keeping it at the 19th.
Jake, Matt, any comment?
That's fine with me.
Yeah, I'm fine with the proposed schedule.
If there's no further conversation.
Just one question. There are a couple of months where the Wednesday is the 16th.
We talked
Does that
about that.
one day, does
Helps.
that make a it helps? It does?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've made it work on the 15th. I mean, Carrie's made it work on the 15th. But we just thought as a good, and we also know the 15th has the 5 weeks. We you have to stop somewhere. So we just figured the 15th made sense to stop. Appreciate that.
I would entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the board meeting calendar for 2025.
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the board meeting calendar for 2025. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Krista, aye.
Jake, aye.
Aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the 2025 meeting schedule is approved. Right, moving on to the Board of Commissioner policies, right?
In talking with the chair, we agreed that a discussion of board policies and expectations would be appropriate as we're entering a couple of years of intense work and as we approach the opening of the Aquatic Center in 2027. To that end, we'll be reviewing policy manual section 2, understanding that you recently approved this, so this is not meant to be a big edit, change a bunch of things. It's really meant to be more of just a refresher, a good reminder. This is not a policy thing that gets read regularly. So, of course, if you decided to make any changes, you'd have the authority to do that, but it really isn't intended to be a workshop to build through that. We've already done that. I included all of section 2, but I'd like just to highlight a few sections that I think are relevant to some of the work we'll be doing over the next couple of years. And again, this also isn't meant as things are not happening well now. It's just more of a refresher course. It's December, so it's good end of the year stuff. The first point I'm just going to read through these, allow you to ask questions, comments, and then if there's any other comments on this or other sections from it, you're welcome to share those. The first one is just a reminder: the board as a whole is the legal corporate authority of the district. As an individual, a board member has no legal authority except to determine policy, give direction to district personnel, or act on or speak for the board unless specifically authorized to do so by board action. The pool is going to get big. It's going to get intense. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces. People, are going to want comments. Maybe the paper wants comments. I just think it's important that we have a unified voice, just to make sure that we're saying the same things. And so not just, says everything's accurate. So second section, relation to the individual commissioners to the whole board. And forgive me that I'm going to be reading something here today, but just, have a nice reading voice. Individually, commissioners have no legal authority except one, as they contribute to the action of the entire board or a legal quorum thereof, which consists of 3 members, in their duties as elected officials of the board or as a board designated representative to the other outside groups or entities, recognizing that individual board members are usually contacted by parents, user, or patrons of the districts who want to expect immediate action, such as problems or suggestions shall be brought before the entire board or the attention of the director of the district. We dealt with this today, right? I mean, it's just good it's good for us to communicate, not to create a story, but just so you guys have all the information you have before communicating to people. That's really part of the desire, is that everyone just knows everything so that we are able to talk intelligently. Communication, the very nature, I'll skim some of this. The very nature of the work we do necessitates communication from the director to the board and the board of directors between regularly scheduled board meetings. This is an important one, and I think we've gotten much better at this, but it's a good reminder. The most efficient method of communication for a board as this is via email. This clearly states in our policies that I'm going to communicate with you via email, so it's important that those are checked daily. A lot of days there won't be an email, I get that. Your email is also the communication piece that we give to the public. So if the public wants to get hold of you, they're going to email your commissioner email. So if we're not checking that, it's a possibility that we miss it. So I think we've made some good steps in this thing, but a good reminder. Also important to respond, even if because sometimes I won't ask you a question. It'll just be information. Today, Krista responded with the word red. Great, I know you got it. Thank you. It just helps. It just helps so I'm not thinking whether or not you got this information. In order to facilitate the flow of information between the director and the commissioners, as well as offering a contact point for the commissioners of the community, each commissioner will be signed, as you know, an email. We know this. It's posted on the Park District website. And as I said before, trying to check it at least every day, just glance at it. I know Sky has worked with several of you to mainstream and connect your systems so that you're getting it directly. I know that several of us have several emails and checking them all the time can be tedious. I get that. And then the last part here is just you'll strive to respond within a business day. And even if the response is just simply acknowledging that you got it, it'll help because there's going to be a lot of big stuff coming down the pike. And it'll help me to just to know that I can communicate with you guys that way without having to hunch it in. Board committees, again, this is kind of standard. This is the board may establish standing or advisory committees for the purpose of assisting the commission in carrying out the responsibilities, as well as to obtain the broadest community involvement and representation. We obviously have had those recently, but it's good to be aware that as we move forward, we might have new committees, different kind of committees. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces, so that might be something that you decide to engage in. As an elected official representing us, attendance at meetings is critical. In the event that you're not able to attend, you need to, this is something we changed in our policies, you need to notify both me and the chair as early as possible so that we understand that you're not coming. If for any reason 3 of you or more were not coming, for instance, we couldn't have a meeting. So it's just important that we know what's going on. This is another thing that I think we're going to get more and more of as the pool gets closer. That's public comments. During any board meeting, the public comment will be limited on the agenda item with a limit of 5 minutes. And actually, I was wrong earlier. I said 3 minutes to the ladies that spoke. They actually had 5 minutes. No individual can give their time to another individual. This is, again, something we did the other month, and I made the mistake. I actually learned something too. I'm learning because I let people share their time the other month for the purpose of extending a comment period. Extensions of any time for an individual's comments would apply to all commentators and must be approved by a majority of the board. An allowance of public comment during any other agenda item requires a vote of the full board to suspend Robert's rules in order to allow that comment. So it just talks about that. But public comments is something, like I said, and sure, we're going to get more. Some will be positive and excited. Some will have questions as they see shovels in the ground and want updates and all those. I mean, it's just going to be more. There's going to be a lot more energy and excitement, I think, for this project, and that's going to draw more people, I think, into our room. Yes.
So I know that there will be times when Mark Bloom is in attendance.
Mhm.
That dialogue, as we learned in the last meeting, was critical, paramount.
Yes.
For him, do we still need to suspend
No.
as an advisor?
No,
He's
he is a contracted. He's under our contract, so I suppose he asked if he should be here tonight, and I don't want to pay for him to be here when there's not agenda items for him to discuss. So I told him that I will have him here probably several of the meetings because there will be topics that need to be addressed.
so okay to dialogue with him.
Yeah, absolutely, because he will be asking questions specific of whatever the topic is, and we'll expect him. And I'm sure there'll be meetings where he's giving some of the reports and some of. I will say, as I told Jennifer earlier, his input and process through the evaluation of these plans has been critical. He's done amazing work in this last month, and yeah, Tom and I both agree that we don't know we can get through this without him. So it's been great, and we'll be glad to have him to more meetings. And finally, the chairman shall limit discussions of matters pending before the board, may suggest time limitations on discussions in order to promote efficiency and equal opportunity of discussion. The process should be to allow each board member the opportunity to speak once, followed up by follow-up points and discussion between the commissioners and staff after all commissioners have had the opportunity to speak. Sometimes we do that. Sometimes it's a little more free-flowing. This is our policies. So that's what I'm saying. I'm throwing this out there because this is what we say we're going to follow and what we're going to do.
And that is in alignment with Robert's rules.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm just throwing all this stuff out there to say if there's anything in here we don't like, you can change it. It's your prerogative. My biggest point in all of this, and when me and Jennifer were talking about this, is it's going to get busy. It's already busy. You know, we're flying around in this, particularly the pool project, but also the pickleball project. There's a million moving pieces, and us all shooting on the same team and moving together is going to be critical. So I think it's been very positive at this point. There's no concerns. I just know that it's going to ramp up, and so being ready for that ramp up is important. And to that, I would throw out. I've talked a lot now, so I'm going to be quiet and say, any questions, concerns, thoughts, any other things you want to talk about in this?
When I initially read it, the one piece that caught me the most was check your email daily, right? Mm-hmm. Just because I'm sure everybody here gets a gazillion emails. I do as well. And I thought to myself, okay, is that practical? But if we're getting notifications, and then, I asked Guy, in general, are we overwhelmed with emails? Maybe I'm just not receiving them, but I don't see that as not practical. In other words, it's doable. Right. So that was my only concern, but and I understand also just replying, and I need to be better at that, just saying, yes, I've read it, because I always do read it, but right. When it dawns on me that I haven't,
it just helps.
Said that.
I will throw out too.
Well,
yeah.
If it's a timely issue, I will text you like I did today. If it's a time sensitive issue that I'm like, hey, you guys really got to see this maybe before 24 hours is up, I'll shoot you a text and I'll say, hey, check your email like I did today. Because sometimes,
that's very helpful.
Yeah, sometimes it's just more, because a lot of times I send you stuff. It isn't necessarily like I need a response immediately, but sometimes it is. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, the issue that was brought up by the public today is an interesting topic, because when was that? When did that first, like in rough time, not specific day, but when did that first become known to the staff?
About About 3 weeks ago.
So we got the text from you today, and prior to that, with no knowledge of the background, I got a call from the instructor with with some of the details from, just again, an opportunity for a member of the public to call a commissioner with details from this, which I had no knowledge of. So where in our process do we, as commissioners, receive information that's germane to these public interactions, potential public interactions on something like this? To me, it's a highly sensitive, important issue, but that I haven't heard about for 3 weeks. Where do we talk about that in this document, or can we adapt this document to make it a two-way street, the communication?
I will say, December 5th, Matt, I sent an email to all the commissioners on this topic. So it is an issue that was in the commissioner's email box. You may have missed that one, but.
And when was the issue? When was the first incident?
It was about a week before that, but when you say incident, there was a lot of information that had to be received before we knew there was a problem. And again, there's only so much we can get into this without going into executive session. But commissioners were emailed as soon as I knew that there was the potential for public feedback. And that's why I emailed, was that I knew that I didn't want the public to come to you without you guys having the base information.
And that's great. That's fine. I'm just saying, where in this policy document do we talk about that as a general rule for the next time this happens?
I don't know. I don't know that it's specifically laid out like that. Other than that there's something about the director will inform the board of pertinent information. There's something about that in there, but I don't think there's a specific.
Yeah, that like that. Where does that appear?
Like it,
I can't scroll on your.
Oh, sorry. I would have to go to the full document here. Hold on. And again, I don't know off the top of my head, but I am guessing that somewhere in our policy manual, I'd have to look it up and maybe send it out tomorrow. But I know there's something about how the director will keep the board informed of pertinent information. So I can spend a few minutes, but I think what I'll probably do to follow up on that is let me do some digging and I'll send the specific verbiage. And if the board's not happy or wants to tweak that verbiage or make it more specific, we certainly could do that.
That's great. Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right, then we are adjourned at 7:03.
Okay, let me stop the recording really quick. Give me a quick second to stop recording. So
Put away, I don't put it.
Rather, you should enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.